Hey guys, so in this video we're going to look at entities, and entities are a very essential part of mapping in Half-Life 1. Now before we get going, I'm just going to delete this leftover from the previous video. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a little button, I'm going to put it on this wall, and when you press that button it's going to open and close this door. I'm also going to put a button that turns the light on and off in this room as well. And then I'm going to play around with something in here to do with this glass maybe, or the door. Right, so let's get going. The first thing is I'm going to get a button texture. Now, if you type in the filter down here, if you type in plus, all the textures that come up, these are textures which have different states. So you'll see a lot of buttons here. There's waterfall as well. These computer screens. All of these will have different states. So for example, this button, if you apply it to a texture and give it attach it to a button entity, what will happen is when you press that in game, it will switch to its other state, like switched on or switched off. And so it is with a lot of these other textures. They'll just have other states. That's what the plus sign means here. So let's just get a button for the door. Let's just pick this one. Okay, let's reduce the size of the grid. The other thing, so you kind of gauge where to place it by looking at the player model, so let's just bring that forward a bit. Okay, so let's create it. Let's just go here. I'm going to put it on the wall here next to the door. Okay, I mean 12 by 16, that's probably good enough for the purpose of this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to apply a null texture to the whole of it, and then I'm going to go back to the button. Oops. There we are. And apply that to the front, and then I'm going to do this thing here, fit, leave everything as it is, and as you'll see it shrinks the texture to fit the brush that we just created. Now I'm going to need to do something about these other faces of this brush because they have the null texture, and as you saw in the last video with the big null block that we left here, if you leave that in, it doesn't look so good. So I'm just going to get a very simple texture. Slap that one out. Let's retake that. There we go. Oops. There we go. Okay, so there's one, and I might just shrink that down again. and then I'm going to create the light switch. So again, I'm going to go to plus, and we're going to find a nice light switch texture, which I know exists somewhere. There it is. Okay. So this one I'm going to copy and paste from this brush that I just made. I'm going to make this one ever so slightly smaller, and then just on the front apply that texture. It fits quite nicely if you center it. Yeah, good. Okay, so we've created the brushes. At the moment they are just brushes. There's no entities tied to them or anything like that. Just going to increase the grid size. Right. We seem to have two Gordons, so we can get rid of Gordon. So the way the entity system in Half-Life works is very straightforward. Things kind of have an on or off state a lot of the time. So if I click this light, you can double click it in the 3D view, or you can right click it and go to properties, brings up this. What we want to do is make sure it has a name. I'm just going to name this L1. Now if you want the room to start off dark, you would tick this box, and then when you press the light, the room would light up. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it bright for now, and then I'm going to go to this button here, and again double click it. Oops, no, before we double click it, sorry, right click, we need to tie it to entity, and if you see here it's got button, button target, target, we're going to make it L1. And we go to flags and we tick use activates. So that's very simple. All we've done is we've attached the entity button target to this little light switch, and we've targeted L1, which is this light here. So we've got this button here and we've got this door. So this door, I'm going to name it D1, and I'll leave that blank. And then with this, we're going to tie it to entity button target, target D1. And again, use activates. Okay, we're going to save and we're going to compile. Okay. So as you can see, lights on in here. We go to the switch, flick the switch. The state's changed, but nothing's happened yet. But flick it again, light goes off. We can keep doing that. Now with this door, as you can see, every time you press one of these buttons, well, you can't see it with that, but with this one, the state, the texture state has changed. Okay, so that's a very simple look at a couple of different ways of using entities in the game. But what we're going to do, we're going to look at something a little bit more complex now. And that is, so you see this button here, Entity Creation Tool. We're going to go to the entity list here, and we're going to find, if I press M, scroll right down here to Multi-Manager. So I'm going to put Multi-Manager here. I'm going to set this as M1. And what I'm going to do, just going to show you what you can kind of achieve really. So with this glass, I'm actually going to move it to the world and then tie it to a breakable and target on break. I'm going to make it target the multi-manager. So render mode, we want it to be texture 25, there we go. So what I've just done there is when you break this glass, it will trigger this multi-manager. Now currently the multi-manager isn't targeting anything else, so let's change that. So let's say it targets this light, for instance, and switches it off. So to do that, we open up the multi-manager, go to Smart Edit, we click Add. What we want to do, so I've got the name of the light, which is L2, and in this value box, all you do is you put in a number, and it's the number in seconds that you wait for the multi-manager to trigger that entity. So if I put in a value of, say, 3, when you break that glass, it targets the multi-manager, and it kind of switches it on. And now that multi-manager, once it's switched on, in 3 seconds it will target this light. And this light, because it starts the game on, when it's switched by the multi-manager, it will switch it off. And the reason you use a multi-manager is because you can target multiple entities. So what I'm going to do, just going to create a second light in here. Make sure you switch off Smart Edit when you're using other entities. So I'm going to call this L3, and I'm going to give this one a red appearance. I'm going to tick the flag initially dark, and I'm going to place it over that. And so what I'm going to do now, go to Smart Edit on the multi-manager, I'm going to add, I'm going to target that new red light, and I'm going to say, ooh, in 6.5 seconds it can then target that red light. And because I've set that red light to start the game dark, when the multi-manager switches that red light, it's going to switch it on. Okay. So now that multi-manager is targeting 2 entities, let's see if we can target another couple of entities or another few things. Let's see. So again, entity creation tool. We're going to make. We're going to generate some sound. So the player's going to be over here somewhere. Let's just generate. I mean, we can pick anything really. Let's just have Barney say. Let's just play that. Why not? So we give this one a name. Let's call it. Let's just call it Barney. And again, we go to the multi-manager, Smart Edit, Add. We're going to do Barney. Let's have this appear 4 seconds in. Now let's have it 3.5 seconds. And let's have something else. Let's do shake. Okay, so we're going to turn Smart Edit off. We're going to do shake 1. Just leave it, I don't know, let's make it 6 seconds. So that's shake 1. So we go to multi-manager, Smart Edit, Add, shake 1, and let's have the room shake 4.5 seconds in. Okay, I think that's quite a good set of entities we've tied up to that multi-manager. So let's see what it does. So we've got the lights. They can only be all these buttons, which can only target one entity at a time. So we go in here and lights gone off, shaking. the red lights come on. Although I couldn't hear Barney, so I might have to have a look at that. But yeah, that's a very quick and basic introduction to entities, what you can do with them, kind of how the system works. It's kind of on an on-off basis. You either switch stuff on or off if it's being targeted by different objects, buttons or breaking glass or whatever you really. So yeah, I hope that helps, and hope you enjoyed the video. Catch you in the next video.